Greetings. This is the Medlock Post radio show, and this is your host, Richard G. Medlock, or I'm your host. This is either one. Welcome. This is the show where we educate, entertain, enlighten, and empower. Today is July 18th, 2022, and today's episode is Capitalism and Freedom. They go hand in hand. The views and opinions on the Medlock Post radio show are the views and opinions of the host. They are not necessarily the views and opinions of Spreaker.com, its corporations, affiliates, or any other podcast streaming services. That's who we are. Welcome to Monday, a new week, new things going on, and yes, we're going to talk about Biden in the Middle East. What a just treacherous situation he put the United States in the Middle East this past week. It just blew my mind what happened, and some of this has not been on the news. Some of the big things that he did is not on the news. You had to look to find this and have some sources. So Joe Biden goes to the Middle East. He goes to Israel first, and he meets with the president of Israel and others. He did not go to the West Wall, which is the symbolism of Israel. That's their marker, the West Wall. He did not go there. He went over to a museum instead. All right, but anyway, so he meets with the president of Israel, comes out to a press conference. He's asked all these questions about Iran, because everybody in the Middle East is concerned about Iran. Almost everybody, except who Iran has in their pockets, like Libya, Syria, and Palestine, and Hamas. They're being funded by Iran. So he's being asked these questions, and the United States will defend Israel no matter what. Well, what will you do to stop Iran from getting a nuclear weapon? We'll do anything, even if it means military action. Standing right there in Israel, in front of the president of Israel, making those comments. While, ladies and gentlemen, at the same time, an envoy from Biden's administration is handing Iran a new Iranian nuclear deal. Giving them a new deal. The first year, the United States will pay them $275 billion, and the next 4 years they will be paid a minimum of $200 billion. So over $1 trillion in 5 years that Biden wants to hand over to the arbiter of terrorism, not only in the Middle East, but around the world. They fund it. So is that $1 trillion going to build hospitals, schools, housing, develop medicine? No. It's going to fund terrorism and to develop nuclear weapons. See, a lot of people didn't know. Nobody in Congress knew about this deal. Nobody in the media knew about this deal. If it hadn't been for someone from a former State Department member from Trump's administration coming out and saying, hey guys, did you know we delivered a new Iranian deal to them this morning? Nobody would have known about it. No, it's true. Okay. So this was Friday. Sunday, Khomeini comes out the head of Iran, comes out and he says, Tehran is capable of building a nuclear bomb. 2 days after the Iranian deal was delivered. The new deal. Now, let's go back to the old deal. The old deal that was done under Obama, and then he shipped pallet loads of cash to Iran. Iran never signed the deal. So there was no commitment from Iran under the Obama administration on that nuclear deal. But they got, I can't remember how many billions of dollars, just cash. They just printed the money and took it over there. A big cargo plane, military cargo plane. So Biden meets with Israel at the same time giving Iran a new cash load of money. Then he meets with the leader of Palestine, still promoting a two-state Israel, which he told Israel he wasn't for. And then he goes to Saudi Arabia. He did nothing over there but stab our buddies or everybody in the back except Iran. Telling Israel one thing, and we'll up to military action, we'll stop Iran, giving them the money to do it. This is what's happening under the Joe Biden administration. Now there's another thing, and follow this in the news, folks, because, for several weeks now, the Democrats are going after Joe Biden. They're concerned with his mental health. They're concerned with his age. Oh, we're concerned with his policies, his radical policies. And I keep seeing these headlines about how the Democrats are concerned about Joe Biden. And the latest headline over the weekend, Democrats concerned with his policies. This is a smokescreen, folks. If they were so concerned with his policies, why aren't they telling him, look, your Build Back Better bill, it's dead. No, we're not going there anymore. We're not going to do all this socialistic policies that you want. But no, they're still moving forward with all these socialistic bills and plans and activities. It's all a smokescreen, folks. They want you to think that this is all about Joe Biden. Joe Biden is just a puppet. All right. Got that cleared up. Hope you understand that. Go do your homework, folks. It's all out there. All right. The other day, again, I think this was Friday, Senator Mazie Hirono, Democrat, Hawaii, made the comment, quote, "Who the heck would know what our founding fathers meant?" Unquote. Again, this goes back, I read the things the other day, the communist plans, goals, and it was to attack the Constitution, attack the founding fathers. So I want to clarify what I said in episode 22, talking about this. When they make comments like this by Senator Hirono, who the heck would know what our founding fathers meant, or the Constitution is a bunch of old white guys, white supremacists, slave owners that wrote this thing, and it's no good for us today. It was only good for their time. And attack. They're just echoing communist talking points. Now, does this mean that the people that are doing this, the journalists that are writing the articles, the pundits on news shows, Congress people, are they part of the communist movement? Well, they're doing exactly what the communists want them to do. They've been indoctrinated to do that. So, Senator Hirono, that is probably a comment, either you're that stupid, I should have said ignorant, I'm sorry, you're either that ignorant and don't know anything about American history, or you have been indoctrinated to think that what they were doing 250 years ago doesn't apply to us. Now, Senator Hirono, I can name some books for you to read. I think she can read. Okay, if not, we can read them to you. I'd love you to call my show. I'd love to have you on my show and discuss this. 5,000 Year Leap by Cleon Skousen. You want to understand the Constitution, what the Founding Fathers were looking at, and how they came and put those 28 principles together that are found in the Constitution. Read that book over and over and over. Go read the Declaration of Independence. Read and study the Constitution. It's not that hard to understand this. But apparently, Senator Hirono has a hard time understanding this. But she's an elected official, and she knows it all. Well, no, she doesn't. I don't know if she knows much of anything, to tell you the truth. Alrighty. Starting off to a rousing kickoff there. I just had to get that out of the way. Because, well, you heard what I said. Biden's out there stabbing everybody in the back. His Afghanistan withdrawal was a big stab in the back to the Middle East, and he goes back over there and he's stabbing them in the back again. And Sister Hirono is showing Senator, I don't know why I keep saying sister, Senator Hirono from Democrat Hawaii is showing her ignorance. All right, Abraham Lincoln, quote, "Don't interfere with anything in the Constitution. That must be maintained, for it is the only safeguard of our liberties," unquote. The only safeguard of our liberties. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you a question. This is an important question for you to ponder and to think about. What is the main purpose of the Constitution of the United States? What is its main purpose? You sit there and you probably start thinking, well, freedom of speech, right to bear arms, protection from unlawful search and seizures, it freed the slaves. What was the purpose of the Constitution? It is very simple. It's very simple. It is to protect freedom. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the main purpose of the Constitution is to protect freedom. And that's why so many people, these people that have fallen into the communist, socialist camp per se, and the totalitarian camp and the tyranny camp, want to destroy the Constitution because it protects freedom. And freedom to the totalitarian tyrannist is like holding up a silver cross to a vampire. And the Constitution is the same thing to these people. Sam Adams, quote, "If you love wealth better than liberty, the tranquility of servitude better than the animating contest of freedom, go home from us in peace. We ask not your counsels or your arms. Crouch down and lick the hands which feed you. May your chains set lightly upon you, and may posterity forget that you were our countrymen." Unquote. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, Sam Adams, one of our founding fathers, says if you don't like liberty and you don't like freedom and you don't want to fight for it, go lick the hands that feed you, and may the chains of tyranny sit lightly upon you, and that posterity will forget that you were part of us. So that goes back, all these so-called Hollywood types and entertainers that said after Roe versus Wade, "Oh, we're leaving the country, we're leaving, I'm going to denounce my citizenship, da-da-da-da-da." Folks are still here. I mean, are we supposed to feel sorry for them? I mean, we've heard this for election after election, decision after decision. We're leaving the country, right? Well, none of them have left. And we've offered to pack your bags, pay your tickets, the whole works, but you haven't left. And quit talking about leaving unless you're really going to do it. You're just making a liar out of yourself. All righty, it's time for a break. And after the breaks, we'll come back and continue. Alrighty, we are back. I mentioned a few minutes ago that there are 28 principles in the United States Constitution. And eventually we're going to get through all 28 principles on this program. Not every program, not every day, but we'll eventually get through them. That's why you want to keep listening and go back and listen. Title of the show is Capitalism and Freedom. So let's talk about the 15th principle. The 15th principle is the highest level of prosperity occurs when there is a free market economy and a minimum of government regulations. Free market economy and a minimum of government regulations. We're just the opposite of that in government regulations today. The founders were fascinated with the possibility of setting up a political and social structure based on natural law. Now, we've talked about law, rule of law, and so forth, but we haven't talked a lot about natural law, and we will do that. But what about economics? Well, that's a different story. Were there natural laws for the marketplace? Well, there were 5 books on the subject that were published in 1776 that gave them the answer. And it was called The Wealth of Nations. It was written by Adam Smith. Now, it was a brilliant work. It's still around today. I've read most of it, studied it. This brilliant work is not easy reading. It is not. It's like studying a law book. But it became the watershed between mercantilism and doctrines of free market economics. What it was was fitting right into the thinking and experiences the founders were looking for, and it fitted into their thinking like a hand on a glove. And Thomas Jefferson wrote, quote, "In political economy, I think Smith's Wealth of Nation the best book extant," unquote, which means the best book ever. Now, who was Adam Smith? He was an 18th century Scottish economist, philosopher, and author who was considered the father of modern economics. Smith argued against mercantilism and was a major proponent of laissez-faire economic policies. In his first book, The Theory of Moral Sentiments, Smith proposed the idea of an invisible hand, the tendency of free markets to regulate themselves using competition, supply and demand, and self-interest. Wow. Smith he's also known for creating the concept of gross domestic product and for his theory of compensating wage differentials. According to his theory, dangerous or undesirable jobs tend to pay higher wages to attract workers to these positions. You get that? Dangerous and undesirable? Smith's most notable contribution to the field of economics was his 1776 book, An Inquiry into the Nature and Causes of the Wealth of Nations. What he did for several years is went around to every country in Europe and studied their economies. He found mostly bad, because most of them were run by the king or a group of individuals controlling things, and like King George XVI in France ruled with an iron hand, and then it wasn't good economics because everything went to the king and his buddies. So he took what was good from a country, from their economic practices, and put it all together and came up with this new modern economics. And folks, it's phenomenal. All right, so Adam Smith's free enterprise economics is tried first in America. Now, there were other writers in Europe, such as the physiocrats in France. They were advocating a free market economy, but nowhere on earth were these principles being practiced by any nation of size or consequence. Now, it's interesting, the physiocrats in France, remember in 1789 the French Revolution broke out, because you had people pushing back against the king and his iron hand, and these were part of them. So the United States was the first people to undertake structuring a whole national economy on the basis of natural law and the free market concept described by Adam Smith. Now, here was the formula. It's really quite simple. A lot of times when you think of economics, and if you ever took economics in college or high school or whatever, if they even teach it anymore, it is kind of complicated. It's not. I remember in my accounting classes, everybody said, "Oh, they're tough." No, you have debits and credits and balance sheets. Debits and credits and balance sheets. Well, they have complicated it through the years, and they did that on purpose. But anyway, let's go back. There's 6 pieces to this formula. Number 1, specialized production. Let each person or corporation persons do what they do best. Right? Just go do what you do best. Number 2, Exchange of goods takes place in a free market environment without governmental interference in production, prices, or wages. There's that without governmental interference, without government regulations. Number 3, the free market provides the needs of the people on the basis of supply and demand with no government-imposed monopolies. It's interesting that what has happened through the ages is some of these monopolies have developed with government subsidies. Number 4, and you get that supply and demand. Here's the supply. Demand is greater than supply, so prices go up. So then supply goes down, and demand goes down, supply is high, prices go down. Supply and demand. It's worked great. Number 4 is regulated competition basis on supply and demand. 5, profits are looked upon as the means by which production of goods and services is made worthwhile. Profits. You need profits to reinvest, to make more product, to keep it going, to improve the product, to do research, to improve, to meet the supply, to make sure there's a demand there, to advertise. But profits today are looked upon with a big frown. Oh, what did Biden say to the energy company? You're making too much money. You need to pay your taxes. Well, they do pay a ton of tax, billions a quarter in taxes from each company. And they do make profits, which goes back to shareholders and dividends and reinvestments into their company to keep improving things. But the people in America today, the progressives, the democratic socialists, frown upon profits. Number 6, competition is looked upon as the means by which quality is improved, quantity is increased, and prices are reduced. Competition in a free market enterprise. It works when they let it work, but they're not letting it work. I got some examples on that. All right, so he further breaks this down to the 4 laws of economic freedom. These are simple laws. Prosperity depends on a climate of wholesome stimulation protected by law. So this is the simple form of economic freedom. And it needs to be maintained so we can prosper at the maximum level. Number 1, the freedom to try. Or what else is he going to say? No, that's it. The freedom to try. To stick your neck out, make an investment, and see if it works. Number 2, the freedom to buy. That I can go buy whatever I want. Number 3, the freedom to sell. And number 4, the freedom to fail. So the freedom to try, buy, sell, and fail. That's your 4 laws of economic freedom. What is so hard to understand about that? I wonder if Senator Hirono, she is not my sister, never met her. Senator Hirono, do you think she might have a hard time understanding this? Probably because it goes against everything she believes in. She wants total control of everything. By 1905, from 1776 to 1905, the United States became the richest industrial nation in the world. But it only had 5% of the Earth's continental land area and merely 6% of the world's population. But the American people were producing over half of almost everything: clothes, food, houses, transportation, communications, even luxuries. And we have to attribute all of that to Adam Smith and his economic policies, his economic system, that the founding fathers understood well, because they were developing a country based on freedom. Senator Hirono, freedom. That was their intent, freedom. It was great. So when we sit here and look at what happened it was actually in the first 50 years, we became the most productive and richest nation on earth. In the first 50 years. And everybody started looking at America. Alec de Tocqueville came over from France to look at America and say, hey, what's going on over here? You're leaving everybody else behind. This is why other countries started copying our Constitution. It's always a beautiful thing. And we have to attribute this to Adam Smith and his books, and The Wealth of Nations. That's what this is all about. This is how we roll forward. And we're going to continue this discussion right after these breaks, these messages. Okay, we are back. Messages, commercials, free enterprise. That's what we're all talking about here, folks. Now, Adam Smith wrote about his economic system, and he also, he says this, small government regulations, government staying out of the way, no government interference, no government monopolies. Like Obamacare is probably the biggest one you want to think of, taking over 20% of the GDP in America, a whole industry, and then unionizing the workers. All right. So he also addressed the role of government in economics. And founding fathers agreed with Adam Smith that the greatest threat to economic prosperity is the intervention of government into economic affairs of private business and of the buying public. Now, what do we see today? Interference. Historically, this has usually involved fixing prices, fixing wages, controlling production, controlling distribution, granting monopolies, or subsidizing certain products. So we want to look at 4 areas, but let's kind of go over these. Fixing prices. Do they do that? Yes, they do. Do they fix wages? Oh, let's increase the minimum wage from $7.25 up to $15. No, we need to go to 18. No, we need to make it 20. That's fixing wages, folks. Why do you think inflation's going up? Because the government forced industries to increase wages. When wages go up, inflation goes up. Controlling production. What do you think the Biden administration is doing in the oil and gas industry? They're controlling production. They're shutting it down. They did it with the coal industry. Controlling distribution. Supply chain problems? Did you know we're the only country in the world with supply chain problems? We're the only country in the world with a lack of baby formula. You can go to Mexico and buy all you want, and people are doing that. Granting monopolies? Oh yeah. Elon Musk? Everybody knows, great, Elon Musk. He was nothing until Obama gave him billions of dollars to go start building electric vehicles. He's made his money from the government. They've subsidized him. Obama went out and took over General Motors and sent most of their production to China, or at least half of it. Subsidizing certain products. Oh yeah, all over the place. But under Adam Smith's plan, there are only 4 legitimate responsibilities that belong to the government in our economic system. 1. Illegal force in the marketplace to compel purchases or sale of products. They're to stop this through policing. Now let me ask you a question. Did the government not do this very same thing under Obamacare? That if you do not have insurance and can't prove it, then we're going to fine you every year on your taxes? It was nothing but a tax, and the court finally ruled that, and it was an illegal tax, so it went away. Corporations. If you have over 50 employees, you have to provide better insurance. Well, it turned out not better insurance. It was worse, and it cost more. Because government got involved. If you had left the marketplace alone, we wouldn't be where we are. There was only one law they needed to change, and that was the insurance companies that sold health policies could only sell them in the state they were registered. They could not sell across state lines. If they had removed that barrier, prices would have gone down, competition would have increased, and we'd have had better health care today than we have, instead of worse. Number 2, they are to stop or investigate fraud in misrepresenting the quality, location, or ownership of the item being sold or bought. So there's to stop fraud, like what's going on with cryptocurrency and other things in the market, ETFs, etc., and other fraud things that are going on. Number 3, monopoly which eliminates competition and results in restraint of trade. Now, folks, originally they came up with this antitrust law, which has turned into a boondoggle. There's not supposed to be any monopolies. But through subsidies, you end up with monopolies. Number 4, and listen to this, and this is the most lengthy one. Debauchery of the cultural standards and moral fiber of society by commercial exploitation of vice. Does everybody know what a vice is? They're listed here. Pornography, obscenity, drugs, liquor, prostitution, or commercial gambling. The government, state or federal, was supposed to stop these things. We've talked about pornography, or no, we haven't. It's in a show coming. But Supreme Court ruled in the 70s, Supreme Court said that pornography was protected by First Amendment free speech. So the government did just the opposite of what they were supposed to do there. Obscenity. Really? The F word is used like the word D anymore, and nobody says a thing about it. Drugs. Have they stopped drugs? Illegal drugs? Look at the southern border right now. We have more drugs on the streets in America right now because of the southern border being open than ever before in our history, and hundreds of thousands of people are dying from it. Liquor. Well, they've tried to control that. Prostitution. In most places now, prostitution, they don't care. They don't even prosecute it anymore. If they arrest them, they fine them $50 and let them go. And then you have sex trafficking. I told you the other day that in the House Judiciary Committee, the Democrats voted down a new proposal to increase penalties for sex traffickers. And I need to correct the statement there, because I says they should be hung in the square. It should be hung in the public square for everybody to see. Commercial gambling. Excuse me. Gambling, the lottery. Remember, we used to have the poker machines. I don't know if they're still out there. We don't have them in our state anymore, because the state was spending more money on gambling addiction than they were on the money they were making from the machines. So they finally says, whoa, wait a minute, we've got to stop this. But then they turned around and approved the lottery. The lottery is nothing but a tax, ladies and gentlemen, and millions of people keep going by these tickets, and it goes into the pot, and one or two people win it. And this is going to help education. Well, really, where has it helped? Tell us where it's helped. Well, it hasn't. It hasn't. So you have gambling. Now, you can bet on sports games online. It's just gone crazy. So the government has done just the opposite of what the Founding Fathers and Adam Smith's economic system proposed. They're doing just the opposite to create chaos. The perspective of the founders and the economic role of government may be gathered from sentiments by this from George Washington, quote, "Let vigorous measures be adopted not to limit the price of articles, for this I believe is inconsistent with the very nature of things and impracticable in itself, but to punish speculators, forestallers, and extortioners, and above all to sink the money by heavy taxes, to promote public and private economy, encourage manufacturers." So George Washington knew what he was talking about. All right, we're moving right along here, folks. And we're moving, and now we got to take a break, and we'll do that, and we'll be right back. Okay, we are back. We were practicing the free market economic system with commercials. I want to make a course change here, folks. And I'm looking at the time. I'm going to jump to something that was written by Jess Gill in the Conservative Daily News. If you're not following them, turn that off. If you're not following them, it's a good conservative place to go. The town hall is a good place to go. He writes an article The crab mentality of anti-capitalism. I love the title because a lot of people in D.C. are crabby. Senator Hirono is one of them. Nancy Pelosi is about as crabby as you can get. And yes, I'm speaking my mind, folks, because we have freedom of speech. Jess says this: if you put a crab inside a bucket, it will crawl out. However, if you put multiple crabs in a bucket, they will all stay inside the bucket. If any crab decides to attempt to leave the bucket, they will be pulled back in by their crab comrades. It is believed that the reasoning of the crabs not letting any others escape the bucket can be best described as, if I can't have it, neither can you. Even if this results in them being turned into crab soup, the crabs will remain in the bucket. It's where we coined the term crab mentality. You see where this is going? Jess Gill hits the nail on the head. Like crabs, anti-capitalists desire to keep society inside the bucket, even if that leads to disastrous ends, which we're in right now with high inflation. We're in the opening of a recession in the United States. Back to Jess Gill. This can be seen through large-scale socialist projects, such as that of the Socialist Union or the Maoist China, which were hell-bent on punishing the rich, even if that meant the poor had to suffer along with them. In addition, personal accomplishment and profit are punished under socialist regimes, as it goes against collectivism and worker solidarity. It doesn't matter if their 5-year plans lead to food shortages and economic inefficiency. As long as everyone is inside the bucket, the crabs can all suffer together. Now let me kind of change this. Americans can all suffer together. Excuse me. That's what the Democratic Socialists want to happen. They want us suffering. This mentality can also be seen through modern-day anti-capitalists on a personal scale. Capitalism enables those who are skillful and hardworking to rise, leaving it up to the individual to decide their own fate. That's freedom. Now, Ludwig von Mises, M-I-S-E-S, great philosopher, economist, states the anti-capitalist mentality is this, quote, the sway of the principle, to each according to his accomplishments, does not allow of any excuse of personal shortcomings. Everybody knows very well that there are people like him who succeeded where he himself failed. Everybody knows that many from whom he envies are self-made men who started. And much worse, he knows that all other people know it too. He reads it in the eyes of his wife and children, the silent reproach, why have you not been smarter? He sees how people admire those who have been more successful than he and look with contempt or pity on his failure, unquote. So those that can't produce, those that are failures, try to tear down those that are. And that's the democratic socialist mindset. But they've put them in a position to become wealthy and powerful, but they do not want anybody else to do that. Jesse Gill continues with this. This individualism leads to personal responsibility. And boy, have we talked about that on this show. Continuing, and those who are unable to accept personal responsibility try to blame others for their personal failures. Perhaps the crab is worried that he'd be unable to leave the bucket even if he tried. Perhaps he's resentful that the other crab thought to leave the bucket before him. He projects his insecurities and grows jealous of anyone who does well. Instead of personal reflection on how to achieve his goals, the anti-capitalist pulls everyone else down. He does this by assuming anyone successful has achieved it through wickedness and trickery. He frames making a profit as selfishness. He advocates for policies to drag the successful down for the sake of equality. Ladies and gentlemen, we are seeing this happen before our very eyes in the United States of America. And this needs to stop. And how does this stop? Is taking out the people in charge. Getting them out of office. Let me make that clear. Let's get them out of office. They have removed the incentive to work hard. They handicap productivity and innovation, and the whole country suffers as a result. This is what's happened since January 20th, 2021, when Joe Biden took office. These people that are in charge now, if you put them in the real world, would be such failures, it would be unbelievable. They wouldn't know which way to turn. The thing of it is, there is no happy ending for the crabs who stay in the bucket. But there's going to be a happy ending because we the people are tired of this, and we're going to put a stop to it, or start putting a stop to it in November. So, ladies and gentlemen, I took a turn there, and if I continued, we'll pick this up tomorrow in episode 24, because there's so much, folks, for you to learn, for me to learn, and for us to move on. And we want to do that in unison, getting you to think, getting me to think, getting me to ask you questions to think. So we will come back tomorrow, but let me leave you with this thought about thinking. And it's an author unknown, and it's quote, "It's a little thing to do just to think. Anyone, no matter who, ought to think. Take a little time each day from the minutes thrown away, spare it from your work or play, stop and think. You will find that those who fail do not think. Half the trouble that we see, trouble brewed for you and me, probably would never be if we'd think." And that, folks, is the Medlock Post for today. May God bless America.